All right, here's the last video in this little series working with this program. But what we're going to do is learn about arrays here. So I want you to delete everything that is, other than that, our three ending lines there, the return, the pause, and the just for formatting the C out there. But everything else inside of main, just delete that. Okay, so what we're going to do is create arrays of some variables here. Now, last time we were asking some questions. This time we're gonna create string. We're gonna call it name, and we're gonna put inside these square brackets, the number 2. Now what that does is that creates an array of 2 names. I'm actually going to change that to 3 names. Now, let's see, string name 3. We're going to go integer, age, and we're going to create 3 of them. And we're going to say we're going to say char hair, and 3 of them. Now, what we're going to do is go and get those variables just like we did before. So we're going to go cout. No, we're going to go name. Now, even though we said that we have 3 names, the compiler starts counting at 0. So the first name isn't going to be number 1. It's going to be array element 0. So name 0, name 1, and name 2. Those are our 3 array elements. So name 0 equals get, what did we call that function? We called it get sentence, and for a prompt we're going to say what is your name, and we're going to say name 1 equals get sentence what is your father's name, and name 2, the last one, is going to be get sentence what is your mother's name. So that will fill all 3 of our array elements with 3 different names. Now for age, we're going to do basically the same thing, but we're going to say age 0 equals get number, and the prompt will be how old are you? Age 1 equals get number, how old is your father? And age 2 is going to be get number, how old is your mother? All right, now the next one, hair, we're going to do something a little different, because we want this to be a yes or no question. So the only available answers for the user are either going to be Y or N. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, we're going to go for int I equals 0, semicolon. And what we've done so far, we're telling it we're making a for loop. Then int I, that tells it that we're creating a variable of type integer named I, and that right now it equals 0. Then we're going to say while I is less than or equal to 2, because that's how many elements we have. And then we're going to say I plus plus. Now plus plus is what's called the increment operator. So every time the compiler comes along the command plus plus, it is going to increment the variable one time. It can actually appear in front of the I, so it could be plus plus I. But what would happen is the first time this ran through, it would increment it before it ran. So the first time this ran through the loop, instead of I equaling 0, it would equal 1. And that's not something that we want. So now on the I++, we're not going to put a semicolon. We are going to open up some brackets, and we're going to say while true, open up some more brackets. This is now what's called a nested loop. We're running one loop inside another loop, and these can sometimes get nested pretty deep. So while true, we're going to say here I equals get upper character, and the prompt is going to be, now this prompt is actually going to change each time we run this. So we're going to say at first, we're going to say does space, close a colon, plus, now we're going to use the name, and it's going to be the same value I, plus, open double quotes, space, leading space, have hair. So what we did here is we're going to assign to the value hair I. Remember, each time this loop runs through, I is going to go up by 1. So the first time it runs through, it's going to be I equals 0. So hair 0 will equal that character. Now we're going to say if hair I equals, and then a single quote, capital Y, and then we're going to write an OR symbol. And the OR symbol is a shift backslash. That's the slash that's right underneath the backspace key. So you hold shift and you hit that backspace key twice, and it's going to put 2 vertical lines on the screen. That's the OR operator. So we're going to say if hair 0 equals Y, or hair I equals, and then again in single quotes, capital N, no, then break. So if it doesn't break, then it's going to print out, cout, invalid response. Cout. Not cout. End line. I forgot to put the operator at the beginning of that. Now, for some reason, it is telling me char, hand 3. Expression must be a modifiable value. Now, why is it saying 3? Less than or equal to 2. Okay. So, basically, this is the same loop. This is a loop that will verify that we either put just a Y or a no into into this response. Otherwise, it will say invalid response, and it will keep looping through that until you either put a Y or an N. Once you do, it'll break out of that loop and go down, and it'll go back to the 4 where it increments I, and it'll go back through the same process, making sure that oh, I know why. That's what was causing that mistake. Was if see now, expression must be modifiable value. If hair equals, that was an assignment. Maybe it was, yeah, it was this one. There we go. So these had to be double equal signs. That's the operator for comparison. But just one equal sign, it is an assignment. All right, so that should go through. Now we're at the end, and we are going to again do another for loop exactly the same way. Int I equals 0. I is less than or equal to 2. I plus plus. And we're going to write cout. Actually, I'm going to do something a little different here. We're going to go string has hair equals double quotes. We're going to say, actually, let's cut that out. Control X. Scroll up here to where we've listed these other variables. Find a blank line, hit Control V to paste it in there. Yeah, string has hair. All right, so back down here, we're going to say if hair, comma, I equals, single quote, capital Y, then has hair equals, and we're going to put in a sentence, has hair, period. Then we're going to write else has hair equals, then our double quotes we're going to write is bald, period. Then we're going to write cout name, comma, I mean in the element I in the brackets, and then in double parentheses, double quotes, we'll write, don't forget the leading space, is, ending space, age, I, and then the next one is, don't forget the leading space, years old, comma, and then an ending space, and has hair. And then lastly, end line. And that is all we need. So, let's run this program and see what happens. What is your name? I'm gonna go Bob. What is your father's name? Joe. What is your mother's name? Liz. How old are you? 25. How old is your father? 50. How old is your mother? 89. Does Bob have hair? Yes. Does Joe have hair? I'm going to put in a B. Invalid response. Does Joe have hair? No. Does Liz have hair? No. And then enter. And it says, Bob is 25 years old and has hair. Joe is 50 years old and is bald. Liz is 89 years old and is bald. Press any key to continue. Alright, so one thing we didn't put down here that I want to add is right here we want to put it. We're going to write system, and inside some parentheses and quotes we're going to write CLS. That's to clear that console screen and make it look a little bit neater. So what is your name? William. What is your father's name? Matthew. What is your mother's name? Debbie. How old are you? 38. How old is your father? 65. How old is your mother? 62. Does William have hair? Yes. Does Matthew have hair? B. Invalid response. Does Matthew have hair? No. Does Debbie have hair? Yes. There we go. William is 38 years old and has hair. Matthew is 65 years old and is bald. Debbie is 62 years old and has hair. Press any key to continue. So there you go. That's how you would use arrays to hold a bunch of similar data, and then that allows you to use loops to be able to manipulate the data, either gather it from the user or print it out to the user. Now, just a heads up that it takes a little bit of overhead programming to set up and run a loop. So really, something as small as just 3 array elements here, you probably would have been faster to write the code out rather than doing it in a loop. But if you had a huge array, even 20, basically if it gets to be where it's a long time to write it out, you can throw it into a loop. But after a few elements, it becomes that overhead no longer really matters. Now, one other thing I want to cover in here is one other type of variable, and that is written down here someplace, but I don't have it in front of me. Here we go. Up here, outside of the main function, we're going to write enum, and we're going to write a variable name. Or a type name. We're going to call this a small e and people, and open some brackets, and we're going to write myself equals 0, comma, father, comma, mother. Okay, now what this does is this assigns to the value myself the number 0. Father and mother will then keep going up from 1. You could change this to 10, and then this would be 11, and this would be 12. Or you can actually assign them specific numbers each time. You could write, father, myself equals 0, father equals 10, mother equals 20, or 25, or whatever you want it to be. But if you don't specify something, it will just increment from the last one. So now what we can do is make a new variable, actually 3 new variables, and we can go, the variable type now is our enum type, ePeople, and we're going to label them me, dad, and mom. So now that creates 3 variables of type ePeople. Now we're going to write me equals myself. Dad equals father, and mom equals mother. Now what we would be able to do, rather than having these numbers in here, we could write me dad and mom. Now, these still are going to be compiled as numbers 0, 1, and 2, because up here, remember we said this myself is 0, father is going to be 1 more than that, and mother will be 1 more than that. So these are still going to end up compiling as numbers, but because you gave them these little labels, they're just a little bit easier to read and remember what they're for. A lot of times these will be used for things like in a calendar, maybe for the days of the week, maybe in the months of the year, things like that, where it might just be easier to remember the name rather than putting in a number. But you'll see this program will still compile and run just like before. So we're going to go Greg, Billy, and Linda. 16, 50, 44, yes, no, yes. And everything still works out. Now, one downside of the enum is that you can't really use it in loops, but because they are still numbers, these still equate to a number, you can just go back to using the numbers rather than the name of it. All right, so we covered a lot of stuff here, starting off with getting and validating input, created some functions out of those, then turned those functions into a header file. We've done two kinds of loops, the for loop and the while loop. The system clear screen, I think that's new. And now we've done some basic arrays and enums. So we've done a lot of stuff. Maybe try on here getting other pieces of information rather than name, age, and hair. Maybe name, address, phone number, male or female, whatever you want to, whatever kinds of data that you think somebody might want, email address, and try to gather it, and both for just one person and maybe in some other arrays, and fool around with it a little bit. Like I said before, it's the fooling around with this stuff is where you're really going to start picking it up. You may want to print this code out so you have it right there next to you when you're fooling it in. You can always look at it and remember the names and things like that. So this is it for this part of this input validation. We're going to move on to looking at some of the ASCII codes next time. All right, so until then, goodbye.